Hello, it's Shannon. I'm coming on here to provide a trauma-trained teaching and a somatic experiencing practice. I'm noticing that a lot of folks are rightfully so not okay and experiencing a lot more spiritual, physical, and mental symptoms due to high levels of collective trauma and vicarious trauma. A lot of times people don't understand that what is happening systemically, even outside of ourselves, when we witness that, can cause trauma to the body. From a neuroscience perspective, the body doesn't really recognize the difference between something happening outside of us and inside of us if we're visually witnessing it. Compassion fatigue is also really, really high for those that work with others and that help serve others. And those levels have been really high as well because this collective crisis has been ongoing for eons. And as long as I've been an integrated practitioner for the last 15 years, the levels of trauma and chronic stress have continued to increase. And now with the algorithms on social media, the division, dissociation, and disconnection, I really never have seen it higher. And what happens during ongoing collective crisis is a lot of trauma responses of every single different kind of way. And so a lot of people are emotionally and spiritually bypassing, again, unconsciously, but these are trauma responses. There are people that are fawning and appeasing even the systems that harm to stay safe. And again, this is all unconscious. Folks are hypervigilant, so a lot of racing thoughts, anxiety, insomnia, as well as hypovigilant, dissociated, depressed, feeling apathetic and hopeless. Folks' physical symptoms are increasing. And then also a lot of people are in freeze, and freeze can look like being stuck on something, like you feel like you have to, but you can't, or you can't move forward, or doom scrolling can be an aspect of freeze. And exhaustion can be part of freeze. And unfortunately, in our world that is not trauma informed, these are symptoms that are natural to suggest that a threat is happening for yourself or others. Unfortunately, these symptoms are being labeled and pathologized. Again, because a lot of the West is run on dysfunctional systems looking like a society. So I really just want to kind of normalize for a lot of folks. I see a lot of bypassing and telling people to calm down, and a lot of spiritual narcissism, dissociation, and other aspects of people not being okay and not knowing it. Why do I say not knowing it? Because this is an ongoing trauma and that is happening in real time, and folks are surviving it. And sometimes folks will survive it if they have aspects of privilege. They will use those privilege against unconsciously and double down on the abusers being right or defending, and name every single thing that is labeled and pathologized and everything that is happening right now online. That's a trauma response. I have trained in trauma for intensively over the last 10 years, and I'm a complex trauma survivor myself, and understand systems harm very in depth for myself and also for the individuals that I work with and have worked with for a really long time. And any system that can heal can also harm. And trauma can cause, especially intergenerational trauma, can cause high levels of individualism and narcissism, which looks like low empathy. And we are having a lot of low empathy right now because of unprocessed intergenerational trauma. Folks can get elected into power because of unprocessed trauma and because it's a collective trauma response. I'm not going to go into the types of political trauma, but there's political trauma is a real thing because it's a systems trauma. And any policy that puts humans' autonomy, their bodies, their nervous systems, their lives in threat, that is a trauma. And that's just the definition of trauma. I serve trauma survivors from every single culture and background. And what I've seen is that the same systems are harming people in different kinds of ways. And there are inhumane things that are happening right now. Unfortunately, these inhumane things that are happening right now are being very normalized. Unfortunately, beliefs are tied to unprocessed trauma. So even folks, beliefs that they have, beliefs are what fill in the gap between stimulus and response and not knowing unconsciously what's happening. So when was a big systemic threat, folks will, to stay safe, will form belief systems and find groups that they can survive with. And so groupthink will happen. Like I said, I survived a cult in the 80s. I understand systems trauma. I've trained in it for a really long time. The dynamics are very, very nuanced, and there's a lot of information out there. Dr. Stephen Hassan has put a lot of information out there and continues to write and has a podcast. It's worth a listen to understand during these times because all of trauma responses are unconscious. Even defending abusers, that's an unconscious while trauma is ongoing. I don't even like the word right now, trauma responses, because typically trauma responses are something that's happening that we define as happening after trauma. This is ongoing traumatic and abuse that is happening in real time. And not everyone's nervous systems are going to immediately process the threat. Some nervous systems immediately can notice things that are happening and can warn individuals, because I'm a person like that. I've survived systemic trauma, child abuse, a cult, and have healed and trained in all of these things. I'm also neurodivergent and a ultra rapid pattern detector. And I keep writing on Substack about how trauma survivors who have healed and neurodivergent folks who are accommodated and that we can see patterns much earlier than other individuals who have not had to survive the things that we've survived. We're like canaries in the coal mine. And the other thing is that folks' bodies and minds will speak non-verbally through symptoms. And these symptoms aren't to be labeled and pathologized. They're to be listened to because there is an active threat going on. So what we can see during collective crisis and extreme chronic stress, and again, it's not typical stress. Typical stress is made to go into activation and deactivation. Chronic stress that's pervasive and long-term, that's not, our bodies are not meant for that. And there's no superhuman out there. And mine can't. Well, yours can, probably, because if you're a trauma survivor or if you have survived intergenerational trauma and have certain characteristics about yourself that you are strong or a warrior, or these types of archetypes and energies about you to survive that, because many people do not know that they're trauma survivors. Entire cultures can be riddled with unprocessed trauma that looks like a culture. So some folks will not recognize that they are being traumatized in real time. And in fact, the trauma is how the nervous system adapts over time to things that humans aren't meant to be experiencing, like years and years of chronic stress and collective instability And then on top of eons of this, because what is happening now has been happening, tried to tell folks, and now some alarm bells are ringing, but they have been ringing for eons. So some folks' nervous systems in these chronic, stressful times of collective crisis and Watiko insanity, collective insanity, will not recognize the threat immediately. Some folks' nervous systems adapt and may not notice things for days, weeks, months, and even years later. Because, and especially for neurodivergent folks, we can take longer to process things because we're bringing in more information through our nervous system. Our nervous systems are actually in an expanded state of consciousness and a nervous system where our nervous system works differently. It's a unique type of nervous system that can be picking up on more information. And one domain is that a lot of folks, even if they are in an actual threat, they're surviving, so their nervous system may shut down the threat and dissociate. And that is why you're seeing some of the posts and comments from folks online, even healing practitioners, because they are surviving this as well, and serving those that are in harm's way. And the vicarious trauma rates have never been higher. And you can experience trauma from witnessing trauma from even on social media. So while I know people want to share information, just please being sensitive to experiences that are very different than yours. Again, the empathy, having low empathy can be another sign of trauma response. And unprocessed trauma. And so claiming that no one is affected while folks are actually affected, again, that's unfortunately a trauma response. That is, again, most people don't realize that they have unmetabolized trauma. And unfortunately, some cultures are so steeped in unprocessed intergenerational trauma that the things that are being normalized are abnormal. And so if your nervous system is signaling to you, and the only way that it can talk through symptoms, intrusive thoughts, through exhaustion, anxiety, depression, those types of things, really understand that you do want to, it's a fine line between listening to that and then not allowing yourself to be manipulated and told that your nervous system is not reading the room, not reading the signals correctly, because you don't want your threat detector to be turned off. For many individuals who don't realize that they have a trauma history, who haven't processed intergenerational trauma, who do not know that the complex trauma is a part of their story, their threat detectors have been turned off, but they're never all the way turned off. And so that's something that as folks start to heal and become more embodied, it's quite natural to have your threat detector come back online. Just like a light switch can get turned off, it can get turned on, or just like something can be covered up, it can be uncovered. And so it is, I wish I could make like a 4-hour long video, because the nuance that's needed to explain this is so important. But I really want people to know that it doesn't make sense for your nervous system to be calm and entirely regulated in times when things are not okay for yourself or others. And it's also, and just also observe the ways that your nervous system is protecting you through some of your stories and beliefs. And what you can simply say is like, because a lot of times people are protecting themselves unconsciously, is like saying, well, at least I'm not this person or that person, things are okay for me. And while things are okay for you, that can be a way that the nervous system is trying to survive. And right now we are not going to uh, label any survival response right now. We really do want to pay attention to our levels of regulation and capacity, though. And when I say capacity, we can think of capacity as how much space that you have in your nervous system to really respond. A lot of times, parts of us can judge ourselves when we have low or no capacity because we've been experiencing chronic stress, um, things that are happening in our day-to-day life, or we already have a trauma history. Maybe you have autoimmunity or whatever else that you need to attend to. And we can also go in and out of capacity. So I often offer low, medium, and high capacity. Oftentimes where folks suffer a lot of shame is judging, parts of them will judge themselves on their high capacity days. To really, high capacity days is you feel like yourself, you're going out and you're doing what you want to do. And, you know, maybe you've laughed and connected and you just have more space and room to be. But our nervous systems don't work like that as this all or nothing. I have low capacity, medium or high every single day. We go through moments and moments, and healing trauma is coming into more moment to moment awareness. So notice what your capacity is, and it still is important to regulate because when large amounts of collective trauma are happening, we're writing history right now as to how we can respond even with healing responses. Healing responses, and they are happening out there. There are amazing and incredible things that are happening in the world and how people are responding. Organizations, groups that are forming, collective responses, music and art. And if we look to our ancestors, some of our ancestors created the art in music that is still part of our culture today through a healing response. And so we want to bring in our healing impulses to this and the things that you're creating. And I think sometimes folks can feel a lot of shame to say, oh, I got off the internet and I went and I created or I did something that was not related to what's happening in the world. And that's really good, though. Sometimes it's really good because that's a healing response because you're bringing more safety and regulation to the world. If we bring more safety and regulation to the world, this is how we can expand our collective nervous system so that these cycles don't continue to be so emotionally and physically violent. So we have our own, individual patterns and that are individual and ancestral, but we have these collective patterns. And so that each time that you work through something that's dysregulating for you and get a little bit more regulated, then we can work through some of these collective patterns. And what this can look like in real time is instead of getting into an argument with someone who's probably also traumatized, but their trauma response looks different than yours, it could just take a breath and to be curious because we have more in common than we will ever truly realize. All humans want to be safe. All humans want to belong. All humans want to be connected. And these collective dysfunctional systems are trying to keep us divided and trying to keep us disconnected and dissociated from the greatest healing response of all time, which is being interconnected and being with one another. And I'm also so curious as to how much anger is covering up our collective grief for these cycles of insanity that keep happening due to unprocessed trauma that's creating the distortions and the beliefs anyway, because we are interconnected. Only trauma and intergenerational trauma and conditioning takes us away from that realization. We are dependent on one another. Offer some reflections to kind of understand what's happening, maybe for yourself or what's happening in the collective this week. And I offer a practice here at the end. So this is going to be a heart-centered practice. And I want you to feel how your heart is actually protected by your own body. So I'm going to move back a little bit so you can see. So I'm going to place one, or you can place one or both hands on your heart. And you can do this sitting or standing. I'm going to place both hands on my heart, but I'm also going to feel my feet. I have a chair that swivels. If you want to swivel, you can too. I'm going to feel my feet. I'm going to feel how my feet are connected to my seat. I'm going to let gravity drop me a little bit more into my body. And I'm going to create some space in my spine. So I'm going to wiggle and create some space, some length. I'm going to feel through the length of my whole body. So I'm going to feel through the length from my toes, up through my spine to the top of my head, the inside of my face. I'm going to feel my width. My width can be felt. We can feel it on the outside of our feet, our hips, our clavicle, our shoulders. And feel that we have sides to our body. Then feel through the depth. The depth is the front and the back of the body. And just noticing you have a front and a back side to you. I'm feeling the chair behind me, and then I'm feeling my hands on the front of me. And then we're going to bring these sides to ourselves together, these dimensions of beings together a little bit more by noticing and feeling through the length, the width, and the depth together. If noticing your breath is helpful for you, you can, and you can create some space there. If it's not, you don't have to do this step. And then just noticing your hands on around the heart. Just noticing how you feel right now. No judgment. If judgment comes up, just thank a part of you for noticing that. Just saying, yeah, we're just practicing here. And I truly mean that, saying that inside your body, talking to your body, saying, yes, thank you for letting me know that. And we're just practicing. You cannot get it wrong. Practicing is just practicing. So we're feeling through the length with the depth kind of together, a little bit more together, feeling the hands on the heart. And noticing that your heart is actually protected on the backside of your body. So just noticing that. Noticing how your heart is protected on the front side of the body. You have bones on the front side of your body. I have bones. Then we have shoulders and arms on the sides of our body. So just noticing that there. And noticing now how you notice how your heart is protected on the front, back, and sides, how that feels maybe a little bit different. And just noticing. And then here we're going to notice the space around our body. We're just going to sense the space or the air around our body and our heart. Just noticing that there's, even just looking around, that there's space around you in your heart, in your body. And noticing. Noticing what is different from this practice. Thanks for being here with me. I'm going to continue to show up in social media to share collective healing practices that are grounded in trauma-informed care, but also embrace somatics, science, and spirit. Thank you.